Hi everyone, welcome to Chinese Pod. My name's Fiona.
And my name's Gwillem, and today we have a
请问.
Recently, I've been taking Mandarin classes, and some of the students were asking the difference between the ways to say to use in Chinese. There are 3 characters, and what are they?
So we have 用,使用, and 利用. 用,使用, 利用. Now, all 3 can be translated as to use, and they do seem quite similar, but there are some very distinct differences, if not in meaning, definitely in the way it's used. So we're going to go through some examples today.
Now, let's start with the first one. The most simple and the most common one is
用. 用. This is literally to use. So let me give you an example. 中国人用筷子吃饭.
Chinese people use chopsticks to eat dinner.
我用电脑工作.
I use the computer to do my work.
Or 我用盐调味.
I use salt to add flavor?
To season my food.
Season.
Right?
Okay, so this is the most basic kind of character to understand, and obviously the most common.
So it's not just common in terms of, being seen in a written form. It's the most colloquial, the one that you'll hear the most in day-to-day conversations. Now, how about the second one, which is 使用?
Now,
使用, you have to be careful because 实用, second tone, makes it practical. So we're talking about 使用, third tone, fourth tone.
so it's a different character. Okay,
使用.
so third tone, fourth tone, and this translates as to use, and it's basically the same meaning. So how is it different?
So the first and most important difference is that it's more of a written form of 用. So by default, it being a written form, it's slightly more formal. So slightly more formal, it's more of a written form. So let me give you a couple of examples. You can use this bank card abroad. 这张银行卡在国外也可以使用. So you can use this bank card abroad.
Okay, because that's talking about a rather formal process, you would use this slightly more advanced word.
But you can also use 用 in this case, right? 这张银行卡在国外也可以用. So you can say 也可以使用, 也可以用. Now, if you're calling the bank lady or the person, the customer service rep is probably going to be like 这张卡片可以在国外使用. And if you call up your friends, like, 可以用啊,可以在国外使用.
Okay, so just remember, same meaning, but one is more formal. How do you say formal in Chinese?
比较正式.
And also it will be more common in written language, which is usually more formal.
对,比较书面. So let me just give you one more example where both can be used. Now, 这些设备很少人使用.
These bits of equipment, very few people use.
You can also say 这些设备很少人用. Now, one's more formal, one's more colloquial, one's more informal. Now, do you notice a pattern here with these 2 sentences? So usually when it can be used interchangeably, when it's at the end of the sentence. Now that we've looked at example sentences where they can be used interchangeably, let's look at where they cannot be used interchangeably. You have to change the structure of a sentence a little bit. Now you might be at a shop, right? And you want to ask, excuse me, how do I use this thing, right? You would say, 请告诉我如何使用这个.
Please tell me how to use this. Now, Fiona's used some more formal bits of language there.
And that's natural, right? When you have more when you have more formal bits of vocabulary, the other bits of vocabulary surrounding it will become more formal. So, 请告诉我如何使用这个. Now, if you want to make it more colloquial and use 用, you would have to change the sentence though, but you would have to say 请告诉我这个怎么用. How about another one? 这台机器目前无法使用. 这台机器目前 currently 无法 no way 使用. And the colloquial version of that would be 这台机器现在没办法用. 这台机器现在没办法用. So you can see, right, the words that go along together with 使用 are always more formal, right? 无法使用 and 现在没办法用.
So we've just talked about the verbs 用 and 使用. How about, I've heard that it can be used, the 使用, as a noun.
That's a good point. I think that's one of those distinguishing factors between 用 and 使用. Because 使用 is more formal, you'll see it in more specific nouns. Let me give you a couple of examples. First thing, 使用者.
使用者. That is a user. So, for example, an iPhone user would be an iPhone.
使用者. Or I just thought of this, a user interface. Wait, I'm not very clued up on tech language in both languages, but let me just try. I think it would be 使用者界面, a user interface. And also, let's look at 使用方式. 使用方式, you might read this in a 使用说明. 使用说明, so you might find this in like, little instruction booklets or...
So 说明 is the word for instructions. So I guess 使用 can be translated as usage. Usage instructions.
Exactly. So you can say 请告诉我洗衣机的使用方式. 请告诉我洗衣机的使用方式. Can you please tell me how I can use, what is the appropriate way to use this washing machine?
Okay, so I guess when you turn it into a noun, it goes from to use into usage.
That's right. Okay, well now let's look at the final one, which is 利用.
So 利用, 2 fourth tones. How is this different to the previous two?
Well, the key thing here is meaning and not how it's used, okay? So the key thing about 利用 is that it's always in the context of exploitation, someone taking advantage of someone or something. So most often you'll find it in kind of negative, there's a kind of a negative connotation to it. There are examples where you can use it in a positive way, but most often when you hear 他在利用他.
Okay, so in English we could translate that as he is using him, which means in a bad way.
Yeah.
Or he's taking advantage of him, he is taking him for a ride. Yeah, he's exploiting them in some way.
所以呢，利用 A 利用 B 一定是 A 想得到好处，或是 A 可以从 B 得到很多的好处，然后 B 被 A 利用 ，B 就会有损失。So B is always losing out, right? When you're 利用ing, 当你在利用一个人的时候呢， the other person doesn't benefit from the situation, right? It's not a win-win situation. It's like, it's most often negative. So let me give you an example. 他说要跟你合作，但是事情都是你做，他在利用你啊。
Okay, so he said we would work together, and yet I'm doing all of the work. He's using me.
没错。So if you hear people talk about using each other, it's 利用 in a context of people or situations, it's most often bad. So let me give you that example that I talked about where you can use it in a more of a positive kind of situation, more positive context. 你要好好利用跟老板吃饭的机会，让他多了解你。
You should really use this opportunity to speak with your boss and let him get to know you.
没错。
So in this case, rather than saying use your boss, which implies a negative thing,
对。
it's more take this opportunity, use this opportunity well.
对，所以利用机会，你要好好的利用机会。It's kind of like a fixed expression that you can learn as a chunk, and that has a positive because you're taking advantage of a situation, right? But you're not taking advantage of someone. If you said 他在利用我们的老板, he's using our boss. That's always bad. Maybe just one, I know we've talked about the definition, but just to look at the characters itself. 利 is 利益的利 benefit 用，所以当你好好的用一件事情，好好的用一个人 when you properly use someone or something and you get 你用他所有东西 you get everything from it, that is 利用。
Okay, so let's just summarize. The first one is
用 and that is the most generic word for to use.
Now, if you want to be a bit more formal, if you're kind of either writing something more formal, you would use
使用, and that can be used as a verb, a noun, and also you'll find it in some special nouns as well.
And finally, the most advanced one, and this is
利用, to use, to exploit, to take advantage of.
Okay, well, have a go at checking out some of the example sentences that we use in the lesson.
Yep.
And we hope you enjoyed this class and it makes it a bit more clear when to use which one.
好，希望你喜欢我们今天的课程. If you have any questions, do remember to get in touch with myself or Gwilym, and then hopefully we'll make it at the next 亲吻. 我们下次见，再见。
再见。